The Tory party is falling apart as some of their MPs have gone rogue against the Prime Minister. Rishi Sunak has made a desperate trip to Iceland to challenge the European judges and failed. And the former Prime Minister Liz Truss is back to attack Downing Street over their relationship with China. As you can imagine, this video's theme is about the Tory family, the Conservative government, so-called Conservative government, and Rishi Sunak's administration, which seems to be all over the place. They cannot even control their own members anymore. And there is a national conservatism conference this week, which we went to the other day. Today is the final day of that conference. It's not a Tory conference. It's the small c social conservatives, who some of them might be Tories, but the majority of them, the rest of them, are not really Tory members. They are just conservative-leaning people who are also sick and tired of the Tory party. But some Tory ministers and senior figures of the Tory party and former ministers also attended this conference, and this has caused chaos, absolute chaos, in the media and inside the government. You've had the likes of Jacob Rees-Mogg, Suella Braverman, Miriam Cates, and even Michael Gove, for some reason, who've attended this conference and made their own speeches, and quite slightly, let's just say, slightly anti-government. They were promoting real conservatism, as they say. Some of the speeches were also infiltrated and crashed by the far-left protesters. As you saw yesterday, we reported Jacob Rees-Mogg's speech was crashed. We even had the Home Secretary's speech, Suella Braverman. Now, Suella is under a lot of attack. I believe they are trying to push her out of government. Everything's that's been happening over the last few days. We've kind of getting an indication that the establishment, they're doing the political stitch-up against Suella. Everybody from civil servants in the Home Office, the media hacks, the government insiders, they're all briefing against her to push her out. One MP accused the Home Secretary of undermining Rishi Sunak's authority and prioritizing her own post-election leadership ambitions. They said Rishi needs to make it clear to her that she's either a team player or a backbencher. So we know exactly what's going on right now. We know that there's no appetite in the Tory party to go against the dear leader and obviously his friend Rishi Sunak. Get it? Jeremy Hunt. So now, one of the problems we had was for some reason Michael Gove, who's a Liberal Conservative, was at this National Conservatism conference, which was slightly confusing. He was going out there claiming to be a Conservative, at the same time defending the Prime Minister and then attacking the government. Well, not attacking it, but more like giving advice and suggestions because he's still part of the establishment. I'm not really sure what was happening there. Who decided to invite Michael Gove? Just because he's a big name doesn't mean you have to be associated with him. Anyway, there has been some also clashes. Basically, the whole Tory party, the Tory family, are attacking each other, left, right and centre. So we have, for example, Jake Berry, MP, Tory MP, when Michael Gove on the stage yesterday said, there simply are not enough homes in this country, we need to do house building. You know, the guy who was in charge of levelling up. Jake Berry said, amen to that. If only you knew someone with the power to do something about it, Michael Gove. He said that about his own colleague publicly on Twitter. They are now publicly fighting against each other. Like it's very, very embarrassing what's going on right now. The Tories used to at least be very good and professional. Backstabbings and stuff like that, plots used to happen behind closed doors in private. Like they didn't used to air the laundry in public, but it's absolutely chaotic. So Tom Harwood from GB News said a Conservative MP texted him saying, my colleagues excelled themselves yesterday at the National Socialist Conference. Oh, Conservative, my mistake. And then Tom Harwood said, one big happy family this morning, clearly. So basically, this Tory MP claimed that this conference is basically like the National Socialist Conference in Germany in the 1930s. And then as a joke said, oh, sorry, I meant conservative, not socialist. Wow. These are the same people who accused Gary Lineker of being insensitive for saying the Tories are basically like 1930s German. They themselves make the same jokes. Anyway, there was another minister who came and briefed against Suella Braverman. It keeps happening. It's so embarrassing. Look at this. So this minister said, Suella is not waiting for the election, but is pitching for Prime Minister now. And she's not the only one. Being in the cabinet is no longer a collective endeavour, but a position to pitch for the next job. It would be better if she and others focused on the jobs they actually had. They would think being Home Secretary was some side hustle. I don't really think Suella believes that the Home Secretary as a job is a side hustle. I think she's trying her best to do something. She's just failing at it so far. Although she's robust in terms of standing up to the establishment. Things got worse when you had Robert Buckland. Oh dear, Buckland of all people also came out and went on Times Radio and very, very directly attacked Suella Braverman.
But I think, remembering that we're part of a team here that should be driven by a collective responsibility to each other and to the country will allow us to focus on getting on with the job rather than making speeches that are at best being misinterpreted or at worst being seen as some sort of agenda that frankly helps nobody. That's what we need to be focusing on, not trying to look ahead to 2025. And frankly, a party that doesn't have the privilege of serving in government is able to do nothing. And anybody who's contemplating defeat, or worse still, planning for it, should grow up or get out.
Well, that is a very blunt message to the Home Secretary.
Grow up or get out. Wow. Yeah. Tory unity. like live and kicking. It's so bad. Now, there's also desperation from Downing Street to get the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, to do something about something. Just do something, some work. Now, this was about sending the PM to Iceland to challenge the European judges, the human rights courts and all those guys about the border control, illegal migration, the Rwanda plan. And they thought this could be a good strategy. Get him on the world stage, making him look like a statesman, and get a tiny victory for Conservatives and Brexiteers. Well, Rishi Sunak flight to Iceland to challenge these European judges who stopped the Rwanda deportation flight. The people who stopped the flight, they thought that Rishi Sunak could convince them to play ball. Yeah, I mean, these people are definitely going to listen. We then discovered this morning that the response was not particularly warm in Iceland, ironically, as Rishi Sunak urged the European leaders to back the Rwanda plan. So he decided to use this summit at the Council of Europe to talk about confronting illegal migration. None of the European leaders actually care because they say, well, we don't really mind our migrants leaving the continent of Europe to come to your Brexit Britain. They're happy. This is their version of punishing us. You really think Macron and the French government really want to stop illegal migrants from crossing the English Channel? It's good for him. Why should he stop them? At best, he's getting rid of them. At worst, he's punishing Britain for leaving the European Union. And Rishi Sunak thought, I could go out there and change their minds. Sure, good luck with that guy. Now, Iceland's foreign affairs minister, said that the summit would not be used to reform an order that prevented the first deportation flight to Rwanda from taking off. It basically shut him down, Rishi Sunak, saying, just shut up, we're not talking about this. Basically, the foreign minister said, the leaders are reconfirming their commitment to the common human rights protection system. And in particular, the court is a cornerstone of our protection system. For the next 2 days, the time we have, we are not using to reform certain articles in the court. So shut up, Rishi Sunak, and just know your place. That's basically what they said to him. It's so weird. So we also had a Dutch politician who's the president of the Council of Europe's Parliamentary Assembly said that we are not a cafeteria where you can ask for the verdict of the court that suits you. They don't like us in Europe. You cannot have a leader in this country to try to make some sort of great concession with European politicians. They don't want to do business with you. What you do is you stand up to them, you become robust, and protect the British interest. You don't negotiate with these idiots anymore. You have to tell them what you want, you take it. They don't give it to you, you take it. You have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. You have to leave the European Court of Human Rights. You cannot negotiate with these judges and politicians. Now, this also goes back about to the clash between the former Prime Minister, Liz Truss, and Rishi Sunak and his number 10 Downing Street team. Liz Truss has recently come out a couple of times to attack the government on various issues. One of them is on China. She's urging Rishi Sunak to describe China as a threat to the UK instead of some sort of competitor or some sort of rival or whatever he called them. And she's also made speeches against globalism, the ultra mentalist globalism and the institutions, the deep state essentially, that stopped her government and brought her down. Downing Street are not really listening to Liz Truss. Why should they? They are in the position of power. But Liz Truss continues to cause disruption. She's traveling to Taiwan. She goes to America. She goes everywhere. And Downing Street are freaking out because she's getting all the attention. She's absolutely right on the issue of China. Downing Street must stop their relationship, this friendly relationship that they have with the Chinese Communist Party. Is very, very dangerous and is outdated. Liz Truss said, we cannot rely. She's also attacked all the international bodies, including the United Nations, WTO, and all the others, saying we cannot rely on the UN Security Council. And the whole thing was chaired by Putin's Russia recently. She also said we cannot even rely on the World Trade Organization to make sure fair trade rules are in place. That's why we need other alternatives to get things done. We need to lead the world. We cannot allow the existing globalists to call the shot. Now, Liz Truss made the speech at the invitation of the Prospect Foundation, a think tank. It forms a part of the former UK leader's 5-day visit to Taiwan. She's been traveling around a lot. Even her trip to America was controversial, and the UK press were all over the place, and they were like, well, why is Liz Truss talking? Shut it up, put it in a closet. But you can't really. At this point, we got just over a year left till about a year till the next general election. Rishi Sunak has improved a little bit in terms of the opinion polls, but mostly because Keir Starmer is not really improving anymore. He's hit his peak, and the way it's looking, the result of the next general election is highly likely to be a hung parliament, which means negotiations will have to happen, which means it's highly likely that you're going to have Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Deputy Prime Minister Ed Davey. Yeah, I don't know what to do about this because I don't really believe that the Conservatives right now deserve to be in government. But do we really want a coalition with the Labour and the Liberal Democrats? I'm not really sure. Considering today, Keir Starmer made a pitch to fight against NIMBYs, the not in my backyard people, and saying we need to build more houses, even parts of the Greenbelt. Does he realise that the Liberal Democrats, their whole platform is NIMBYism? The Liberal Democrats are against house building. How is it going to be in a coalition with a party that will oppose house building? The guy doesn't think. He's just saying random things. What the Labour Party do on a regular basis, they just throw different policies at different targets until the next election. Sometimes you get happy, you're like, oh, I like this one. But then you listen to the next policy idea, you're like, well, that's just going to bring down the whole country. He's going to give voting rights to foreigners. He's going to bring down the voting age to 16. Children are going to vote. Children can change their identity. It's absolute chaos. So it's going to be a great few years, guys. This channel is going to be quite busy. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think of the state of this Tory party and Tory government. I'm Mahyar Tousi, and we are the media.